With the news that David Raya could potentially be missing game week 6, Mikel Arteta in the update, I mean, he hasn't really given us any updates, it's basically wait and see, which, I mean, it's a big risk if you're going to have David Raya that much money in your keeper and potentially him not starting and having no keeper playing at all. So I've decided to build a wildcard team that doesn't have David Raya in it. It's freed up the funds elsewhere. We've gone down from our keeper, and then we've kind of rearranged our team a little bit. And this is a wildcard team which I do quite like, and I am definitely considering it. I have done a wildcard video yesterday, which is it's got David Raya in it, so if you're interested in that, then do go and check it out. But I do really like this team overall. So if you are a big fan of FPL content, this is the place to be. Do subscribe down below, it'd be very much appreciated. It only takes 1 second. And do like the video as well, that will also be very much appreciated. So then we'll take you through the team, starting off with the actual goalkeeper who has replaced David Raya. We have gone for Sanchez of Chelsea. Now, Chelsea's next couple of fixtures are decent. Sanchez has got a good amount of saves and he's got a couple of clean sheets as well. So overall, I don't mind him as an option, to be honest. And there is a couple of other options as well which I like. It's completely down to you. There's obviously Flecken as well at 4.5 is very, very popular. There's Sells at Nottingham Forest. Also Pickford. Branthwaite is now back in training. So that'll probably make Everton more solid like they were last season. And then Pickford could potentially be an option there at 4.8 million. But for me, I've gone for Sanchez just because he's performed very well so far this season. And Chelsea's backline defensively, the numbers, they're one of the better defences in terms of XG conceded. So I think Sanchez for me is probably going to be the one that I'd go for. As I say, that could literally be any player you really want to at 4.5 around that kind of price point. You could even go for a different keeper, but this team is obviously built on bringing the goalkeeper down in terms of value, so we can upgrade elsewhere. So we'll take you on to the rest of the backline now. We have gone for Gabriel as our first one. We still want some Arsenal coverage, of course. Obviously, if Raya is out injured, that does affect Arsenal's kind of defense, how they are defensively. Raya's been amazing in goals so far this season. He made a lot of saves, so having him not there would be a bit of a miss. But Gabriel's still great attacking threat, and then the fixtures are just so good for the next few for Arsenal. So you've got to really go for him, to be honest. Then we've gone for Jacob Grealish, 4 million defender. I mean, for me, he's the best 4 million defender. There's not really anybody that stands out, to be honest. There's Vandenberg for Brentford, but he's not played enough games for me to know that he's going to continue to keep his place. And Brentford have been equally... Well, Brentford's defensive numbers have been worse than Ipswich's over the first few games. And Ipswich have played Man City and Liverpool, which contribute to their XG conceded being quite bad. So for me, Jacob Greaves is the number 1 4 million defender personally. Then we're going for Trent Alexander-Arnold. For me, I can't go without him, to be honest. 7 million, I know it's expensive, but he's got that attacking threat. Liverpool have been so solid in defence so far this season as well. So for me, it's a no-brainer, really, to be going for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Then we have Rico Lewis, who is at 4.7 million, and we might get early team news on Man City as well, which is an added bonus. If we know he's starting, for me, he's 100% in my team. Rodri being injured is kind of a boost to Rico Lewis's minutes potentially. He can obviously play on the right, he can play on the left, he can also play in the middle where he's played a few games for Man City this season. With Rodri being out as well in one of the games, a few of the games, Rico Lewis did take Rodri's spot in a kind of similar role. And you just get forward as well, Lewis does as well. So he's got that attacking threat as well. So for me, he's a fantastic option. And if he keeps the start, for me, he's one of the best value players in the game. Then as our last defender, we've gone for Ola Aina. Nottingham Forest defensive numbers have been so good this season. So I kind of feel like a bit of a fool going without a Nottingham Forest defender or keeper in Sells. I just think it's probably the right thing to do. And the fixtures coming up for Nottingham Forest as well are really nice coming up as well. So I like Ola Aina at 4.5, and he's got that slight attacking threat as well, being a fullback. And he hasn't done too much in terms of numbers going forward, but he does get forward quite a bit for Nottingham Forest. So hopefully he can maybe chip in with a couple of contributions. So now moving on to the midfield. It might be a bit of a surprise, but we have gone bigger up front. We'll show you that in a minute. But the midfield, as I say, is quite a low price midfield, to be honest. So we'll start off with Smith Rowe. Now, this is for me because I've got value in him. I guess if you didn't have any value in him, you didn't have him in your team before, maybe it's different. But it's hard to get rid of him when he's done so well this season. His fixtures still aren't bad coming up as well. And as I say, he's done really, really well. Like a few goals already this season. Value's gone up massively. Fulham are playing pretty well. And Smith Rowe's look really good. And he's excellent value, there's no doubt, at the price. At 5.5 million for me, but even at 5.8 million, I still think he's excellent value. So I'm a big fan of Emile Smith Rowe. So I don't know. That's a bit of one that's not really. He's not really been too popular in wildcard teams, which to be honest, it kind of surprises me because, as I say, he's been the best performing player around his price point. To be honest, so I'm surprised a lot of people are getting rid of him. It's not like the fixtures are even shocking for Fulham coming up as well. They have got a few good games in there. Obviously, Man City after Nottingham Forest, but I still think he's a great option in my personal opinion. Then next up, we've gone for Morgan Rogers. Now he can rotate quite nicely with these other players as well. With Smith Rowe and Semenyo, you kind of play the fixtures with them three, and obviously just bench whichever one's got the worst one out of them three. And Morgan Rogers, I think, has been really good in terms of on the eye. In terms of his XGI, it's not been the best. It's sitting at about 0.3, which, I mean, it's okay. He is 5 million, so you can't expect the world. So he's kind of one to come in and out of the team based on fixtures. And as I say, he's a really good player as well, and he could definitely get better. We've seen how good he's played, and he can get a lot better in my opinion. Then we've gone for Antoine Semenyo, and this is mainly due to the fact that the next two fixtures for Bournemouth are absolutely incredible. Southampton and then Leicester. And beyond the next three games after that, it's like Man City, Arsenal and Aston Villa. But after that, it is decent again. So, and I wouldn't mind playing Semenyo really against Aston Villa if I had to. But against City and Arsenal, I probably wouldn't want to play him. But as I say, beyond then, from Gameweek 11 onwards, his fixtures do get quite good again. So it's just kind of a 3-week window where you probably have to have him on your bench, or you could maybe transfer him out depending on what other players are looking good at that time. But he's a good hold as well, Semenyo, because he has got the nailed minutes, and he's playing in a good Bournemouth team, and he is probably Bournemouth's key player, I'd say. At 5.5 million as well, 5.6 million now. I've also got value in him as well, which obviously plays a part, but I think he's a great pick in my opinion as well. Then we've got Mbeumo for Brentford. I think he's an absolute lock-in. I think he's in everybody's wildcard draft pretty much. So, I mean, you can understand why. 4 goals in 5 games. The fixtures long-term for Brentford are amazing. So, I mean, there's not really any discussion about Mbeumo. And as our final midfielder, we have gone for Bukayo Saka. Now, we haven't got Luis Diaz, he's been in a lot of wildcard drafts. Now, you'll be able to see the reason of that in a second. But Bukayo Saka, for me, is a no-brainer. Just with the fixtures coming up for Arsenal, I've got to have at least one piece of that Arsenal attack, and for me, Bukayo Saka is the absolute standout there. I mean, Kai Havertz is another shout for an Arsenal forward or attacker, but I'm just not too sure with Ødegaard being injured in that. I've not really seen enough of him since Ødegaard, he's kind of dropped a bit deeper. Trossard's been in, so I'm not 100% sure on Havertz personally. So for me, Saka's just a 100% nailed player in my team. And then moving on to the front three now, this is where it gets quite interesting. We've gone for Ollie Watkins. Now, this is a player that's, I feel like he's just been in nobody's wildcard draft, which, I mean, he started getting more minutes. He obviously started the season poorly, but I just don't think he was fully fit. He's had that since the international break. He's come back. He's returned every week since. And the fixtures coming up for Aston Villa are nice as well. Ipswich up next and United after that at home. Isn't a bad fixture at all for Aston Villa, because United, I feel like Villa will get goals against United, and beyond that, it's decent for Aston Villa. So it's a case of Luis Diaz or Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins is safer in terms of minutes, should say. Luis Diaz could very easily come out of the side. So I feel like it needs to at least be discussed. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think it's even been talked about. I think Luis Diaz is just a lock-in for people. Just because he's been transferred in by a lot of people. That's the main reason why. A lot of people are scared to obviously lose a lot of rank with Luis Diaz if he does do well, which is fair enough. I understand it. And I might end up going for Luis Diaz personally myself as well. It's just something that I wanted to bring up a discussion. It's something that I'm personally thinking about very deeply, because I mean, I think Watkins is absolutely excellent. We saw how good he was last season. He's had like the same number of big chances than Erling Haaland. Like, these things can't be ignored. And I know he is expensive, but he's still a very good option. So, you can maybe downgrade him to somebody else. You could easily go for a 6 million forward in Calvert-Lewin, Chris Wood, and then upgrade a Smith Rowe or Semenyo, whoever in that price bracket, to a Luis Diaz. So it's kind of a discussion, which two would you prefer? Which I think both options sound great. Like a Smith Rowe and Watkins still sound great. Equally, a Luis Diaz and a Chris Wood sound great. So I just thought I'd bring that discussion because it's not really been talked about at all. Then next up we have Erling Haaland, and I mean, you can't really... It doesn't even need to be discussed. Haaland's my captain every week. I'm locking him in as captain every single week, no matter what. This guy will be my captain, and he's staying for the whole season as long as he's fit. Then, as our final forward, we've got Dominic Solanke. Now, you could maybe go for a Nicholas Jackson, because there is a bit more budget left for me in this team, so Nicholas Jackson you could afford. But I just think Solanke's got the better long-term fixtures, and I'm not going to lie, for Nicholas Jackson, and Nkunku's worrying me, because he's kind of playing in the same position as Nicholas Jackson. He's bagging goals left, right and centre in the other competitions, which makes me think if Chelsea, aren't playing great in a game, 60 minutes, it could very easily be a swap, which it has been already this season, where you go Nicholas Jackson to Nkunku. With Spurs, when Solanke's played, he's not really had that same kind of threat of another player coming to take his place. Richarlison, I think, is back in training, but even when Richarlison was there, they actually subbed off Son before Solanke. So they've signed Solanke for so much money. He's a 90-minute man almost. So for me, that's my thought process behind going for a Dominic Solanke over Nicholas Jackson, who's a lot more popular in terms of ownership. But I really like that Solanke option personally. He needs someone that he's been in all my wildcard drafts, to be honest, so I really like him. So let me know, what do you think of that team in the comments down below. Do hit subscribe to the channel, it'll be very much appreciated as well. And do drop a like on the video as well, that would be very much appreciated. And let me know, as I say, what you think of this team, and let me know what your wildcard team is in the comments, and I'll definitely get back to you. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.